good evening to you. We've already heard from the Conservatives and, of course, Labour today ahead of their announcement tomorrow. What do you think about what's coming?
Good evening. Well, look, what I think is that the British public are sick and tired of basically being told you can't have an effective border, you can't have sovereignty, you must just allow tens of thousands, in fact, hundreds of thousands now of illegal migrants to turn up on our beaches, and there's basically nothing that can be done about it. And sadly, for all of the rhetoric from Shabana Mahmood, she's basically doing a Rishi Sunak. She's promising the world, she's grabbing a lot of headlines and setting herself targets which she's never going to be able to meet because her own backbench MPs are calling her racist. Labour's own backbench MPs are calling the Labour Home Secretary racist because of the rhetoric she's using and the things that she has announced she wants to do, extending the period required to stay before getting indefinite leave to remain, asking asylum seekers to reapply, etc., to stay. None of these things are possible without primary legislation, meaning none of it is possible unless the Labour backbenchers support her, which they will not. So sadly, after 14 years of the Tories, where they basically left open borders, Labour, their record is even worse. Remember, they came into power saying they were going to smash the gangs. We haven't heard those words in a long time. Their borders bill, which they brought into Parliament in January to, quote, smash the gangs, still has not passed. If there's one thing that's clear from Shabana Mahmood's rhetoric in the last couple of days, it is clear that their plan to, quote, smash the gangs has failed. It's also clear that the number of people coming here illegally via boat is up 40% under Labour than it was even under the Tories, which was already a disaster. The only way to stop this madness, the only way to actually have a border is to leave the ECHR, derogate from every international treaty that stops deportations from happening, and then not just stop the boats, but deport everyone who is in this country illegally, of which there are many. And to do that, we need a reformed government and Nigel Farage as our Prime Minister.
OK, you've gone a bit early with the election campaigning there. There's a few years to go yet, and you still currently have 5 MPs. Nevertheless, we've just heard from Denmark and the situation there, which Labour seems to be inspired by, a system that, to your mind, looks like it might work. I'll ask you whether you think it is or not. And they're still in the European Convention on Human Rights. So why is that necessary?
There's a whole host of reasons. One is, sadly, we have judges in this country that take a very different view in terms of interpreting law, and therefore Article 8 in particular of the ECHR. I mean, not only has prevented deportations from happening, Article 8 of the ECHR has prevented, people convicted, foreign nationals convicted of the most depraved and heinous crimes, such as rape of young British women,
but at the same time, Zia Yusuf, at the same time, one second, at the same time,
on the grounds, and the grounds by the judge was that they would have a tough time of it back in Afghanistan because they were rapists. That's the sort of outrageous situation legally we have in this country.
At the same time, Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights gives 67 million British people the right to a private family life.
Those rights are preserved. I mean, if you want to get into constitutional law in this country.
No, I don't. But the point is, the ECHR broadly provides protections for everybody.
A court in Strasbourg granted them. A court in Strasbourg does not grant British people their rights. That is a nonsense. Parliament in the UK is sovereign. And yes, of course, human rights are important. But the reality is the rights of foreign nationals, in particular those coming here breaking our laws, are time and again trumping the rights of British citizens, people watching this programme who pay their taxes. We're paying £8 billion of taxpayer money for universal credit for foreign nationals every year. We're paying £4 billion and have done for many years now to accommodate illegal migrants. It's totally unacceptable, and I'm afraid people are sick of it.
Your parents came here in the 1980s. Why did they choose to come to the UK from Sri Lanka?
Well, you should probably speak to my parents about that, but I actually don't think it's particularly relevant. My parents did not come here on a boat across the channel illegally.
No, I didn't say
legally, and they've contributed to this country. And I put it to you. You know what? I actually put it to you. You would not be asking this question. There's actually something fundamentally interesting about you asking me that question, because the insinuation of your question is that there is a limit to how restrictive an immigration policy I can advocate for on the basis that my parents happen to be immigrants. And I'm afraid I think there's something very unreasonable about that line of questioning.
No, I think you're deriving the wrong insinuation. I'm interested to know why they came to Britain. I wonder if it was because it's seen as an empathetic and accommodating place.
Well, my father qualified as a medical doctor and came here. He traveled all around the country. Between them, my parents have given 50 years of service to the NHS. My
Yeah.
parents did not come here because they were expecting free taxpayer accommodation, free meals, taxi services around the country, and basically to be able to live a life of leisure, including taxpayer-funded days out at the taxpayer's
But,
expense. Those are
but
reasons they did not come here. And again, the reality is, in the early 1980s, in fact, for decades, this country did indeed have one of the most successful immigration programs in the world. I would argue my parents are a shining example of that. I'm really proud of them. But what we've seen now is a population explosion. We've
yeah.
seen untrammeled illegal immigration. And if you can't tell the difference between people like my parents coming here in the early 1980s, when net immigration was between 30 and 50,000 a year,
Yeah.
and legal migration at around 1 million a year, which is what it was 18 months ago, for example, and hundreds of thousands of people coming here illegally
Yeah.
and being put up at the taxpayer's expense. I think British people see a fundamental difference between those things.
I absolutely can tell the difference, of course. And just to be clear, there was no prejudice in me asking you that question. I'm interested to know what their experience was and what they thought of the UK, which made them want to come to the UK. Just to be clear, there was nothing else insinuated by that.
I'll take you at your word on that.
Good, because that's where it comes from. Nevertheless, you talk about the rhetoric here and the separation. Of course, there are plenty of people like your mum and dad who came here to work and to give good service to the NHS and everything else. Is the rhetoric around this conflating the issues between legal migration that we have needed for a long time in the UK and illegal migration, which, comparatively speaking, numbers-wise, is a lot smaller?
I think they're both totally out of control. Again, in the early 1980s, we can talk about when my parents came in. The early 1980s, net immigration hovered between 30 and 50,000 a year. If we look at what's happened since 2010, for example, we've seen the population of this country increase by 10%. Over 95% of that is through immigration. And look at the payload, look at the effect that has on public services. For example, real spending on the NHS in that time has doubled to cope with that increase of 10%. And we have fewer hospital beds as a result. And under the Boris way, for example, the 3.8 or so million people who came here under Boris Johnson, and as a result of his policies, the majority of those people did not come on work visas. In fact, the vast majority did not come on work visas. So legal migration has been totally out of control in terms of numbers. And on top of that, here's what's really important as well. Democracy matters and the legal mandate matters. The democratic mandate matters. The Tories, in 4 consecutive manifestos, won elections in no small part because they committed to bringing legal migration down to the tens of thousands. They left office with that number at almost 1 million. So that number's out of control. And illegal migration is also totally out of control. Both of those things can be true at the same time, and they are.
Zia Yusuf, thank you for your time.
Thank you.